Good morning, everybody. It's baking day. Let's get started with making sure we have all the equipment we need and all the ingredients we need already. So this is what is called in the cooking world mise en place, which basically is French for everything in its place. I know it looks like, wow, I'm gonna have to do a lot of dishes if I do that. And it's because I've measured out all my ingredients already into all of these individual bowls and measuring cups. The thing is, if you don't do this, sometimes life gets in the way of your baking. Somebody calls you, a kid's got a problem, who knows? You have to go to the bathroom, life. And you might come back and be like, oh, how much flour did I put in? Did I already add the vanilla? Did I do this? And you don't want to run into those kind of mistakes, especially when you're baking this once for this weekend and maybe not again until next year. So it's easier just to make sure you've got it all out here and you know immediately what you've already put into your dough and what still needs to go in. Let's just run through the basics of what we need. You want your mixer with the dough hook attachment. If you're not using a mixer, you could do it all by hand. As I'm adding things to the mixer later, you would just start off with the flour on your surface and start adding things to basically a well you make in the center of that flour, and you would start combining everything that way. Or you could do it all in a very large bowl, which is probably less messy, in which case you just follow along as I'm doing here. Use a spoon to mix it and get ready for a good workout because it is a little bit more challenging. Okay, ingredients wise, you're going to want 2 packages or envelopes of dry active yeast, or any of the other dry yeast. Rapid rise, quick rise, instant, those 3 are all the same. They just call them different things. And I'll talk about, there's a little difference in how we use it, but I'll talk about it when I'm actually putting the dough together. So 2 packages or 4.5 teaspoons if you have like a bulk or a jar of those. Okay, 4 cups of flour, and then you're gonna want a little bit extra for flouring your baking vessel, whatever you're baking in, as well as for when we're kneading. 1 cup of warm milk, 3/4 cups of sugar, 2 whole eggs, plus an additional one for later, so don't put that one in here, but 2 eggs for right now. So you're either gonna be using 2 whole eggs or 1 egg and 2 yolks. For the first time in my life, I was just gonna use 2 eggs and I got one that had 2 yolks in it. Who knew? So I'm gonna have a 3 yolk pasta this time. And we'll see if it makes any difference for me. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Ooh, I did this a few minutes ago. I'm gonna have to redo it. But just a tip on melting your butter, if you're doing it in the microwave, make sure you cover it up with plastic. Butter can really explode and make a mess in there when it gets too hot. And also because of that, you're going to want to go in really short increments at a time. I usually go in about 15-second increments and kind of swirl it around in between. If it does pop and explode, the plastic will protect your microwave, but it's also gonna mess up the exact measurement of your butter. So like I said, this is 2 tablespoons, which is 1/4 of a stick. And you're gonna want some extra little cubes of butter to flour, to help you flour your baking pan. You're going to want 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla or 1 tablespoon of whiskey, which is what I've got in here. Bullet bourbon, in case anyone's interested. You're going to want about 1 tablespoon of oil. I didn't measure that out because that's about all I have left in there. And the zest of 1/2 lemon, if it's a big lemon, right? I just had a teeny tiny lemon, so I zested the whole thing. Just a note about lemons, once it's zested, it's not going to last really long. It's going to dry out very quickly. So use this for something, within the next day. Make cocktails, make some lemonade. If you're making a larger batch of Pascha and you're zesting more lemons, then, you could cook it up and make some lemon curd for a delicious Easter dessert. What else are we going to need? For later, we're going to need a couple big bowls to let the dough rise, like was in that first video, as well as some kitchen towels. To do our decorating, we're going to need some toothpicks and a basting brush. If you don't have a basting brush, you could just take a paper towel and fold it up like this. I mean, it's not going to get into all the nooks and crannies as well, but it will do the job. And you're going to want a cooling rack for your bread once it comes out of the oven. And in the oven, you're going to want to get that rack right slightly lower than center. So whatever baking dish you are using is going to be in the center of the oven. You could see I pulled one of mine out and I've got one dish in there just to see where it lines up. And I'm going to show you now how I flour those things. I'm actually doing two rather short and smaller ones today. I guess diameter wise, they're about what you normally would get with a tall one, but they're going to be shorter just because I want to have enough dough to show you guys some different options for the decorations on the top. So I already took my butter and smeared it all around the inside. Get good coverage. Don't be afraid of going too thick. Make sure you get all the spots. Then what you're going to do is take a little bit of your flour and just dump it in here. Don't be afraid about using too much because we're going to get it out. So do you see this? Okay. So then we knock it around to get good coverage on the bottom. And once you're there, you can tap it all down to one edge and just start spinning it. And as you spin it, it'll start coating the sides. Then you're going to want to place it over whatever dish you're collecting your extra flour in. As you spin this last edge, the excess will fall off. And you will have coated everything. Trust me, it's much easier to let the flour do the work than trying to put it in by hand and move the flour, because you're just going to move the butter and it makes a tremendous mess. So sorry about this noise. Oh, if I do it on the towel, it's better. But then you're just going to want to knock it against the counter. Hold on to this and tap it and get that extra flour out of there. It's not going to do any good. It's just going to give you more powdery residue on your Pascha. So it should look like this, nicely covered and ready to go for when we're ready to bake. That is part one, and join me for part two, and we're actually going to start putting the dough together.